The ecological approach to learning jiu-jitsu, or also known as the constraint-led approach, has had a massive spike in popularity within the last year. It has been implemented by both athletes and coaches like Nicky Ryan at B-Team and PJ Barch at 10th Planet. But there's generally a problem with learning how to create games. Greg usually explains these ideas with words like this.
There are a set of conditions that create effects. We adapt what we do to this interplay of the conditions that we create and the conditions our opponents create as we try to affect each other. And so adaptation is
That is why I want to break it down in this video and explain it with more simpler words and using examples and ideas that you can follow along to teach you how to create effective games that will improve your jiu-jitsu, whether you are an advanced player or a beginner.
There's this new thing in jiu-jitsu that people are talking about called ecological jiu-jitsu.
Now I want to introduce to you an idea I got from Brandon Reed's video with Greg. It is the idea of terminal and continuous roles for the player. A player with a terminal role has a set goal that they can achieve. Something triggers when they have reached that goal. For example, when a terminal player reaches a goal, it could either trigger a restart of the game or a switch in player roles. A player with a continuous role just has to maintain a position or does not have a clear set goal to reach. I will put these roles in my examples later, so it will be easier for you to understand exactly what I'm saying right now. But just keep this in mind. Now we need to talk about affordances. Affordances are the opportunities for an action that your game environment provides to players. Think of it in this way. If you want someone to learn to use their legs from guard, but you don't restrict their hands, they'll likely default to using their hands because it's easier and more familiar. The key is constraining players in a way that makes the desired action the most obvious or attractive option. Instead of telling someone to use your legs more, try constraining them to not use their hands while retaining guard. Suddenly, their legs and hips become the only viable tool, making leg-based solutions naturally emerge. Good constraints should feel challenging but not impossible. If players are completely stuck and can't act at all, your constraints are too restrictive. If they're easily ignoring the skill you want them to develop, your constraints are too loose. Sometimes the physical setup itself creates affordances. Remember, you're not forcing specific techniques, you're creating an environment where the techniques you want emerge as the most logical solutions to the problem. Before I give you my example, I'm going to teach you some terms that you will need to know in order to understand the later parts of this video. Task. This is one or more guidelines players need to follow during the course of the game. Think of these as the rules that shape how the game is played and what actions are encouraged or restricted. When designing tasks, I want you to design tasks that go along with the invariables of an action. And you might be asking, what is an invariable? An invariable are things that never change for an action. Take, for example, to pass a guard, you need your opponent's feet to point away from you. Then secondly, there is the win condition. This is a condition that has to be met for a player to win. When someone achieves their win condition, it can for example trigger either a switch in player roles or a restart of the game. Here are some ideas that you need to keep in mind when designing your games. The first one is level. How good the people are that are going to play the game are going to dictate what language and expressions you can use. For example, does your students know what breaking posture from closed guard means? Another one that is really good to know is scaling. You need to scale the game appropriately to how experienced your students are. You can start the game closer to the win condition or focus the game on one specific area to make it easier for unexperienced players to learn details. So, let me walk you through my practical process for creating constraint-led games. I always start with 4 key steps. Step 1. Identify the problem. First, I identify what specific skill or position I want to work on. For example, let's say the problem is escaping single leg X. Next, I decide how broad I want this game to be. Since standing up is one of the most common and effective escapes from single leg X, I'll focus specifically on that escape method. Step 3 is to set the win conditions. The top player has the terminal goal to stand up to a complete vertical position and to clear all the leg-to-leg connections. When the top player has to reach their win condition, it triggers a switch in top and bottom player positions. The bottom player has the continuous role of maintaining single leg X position. Step 4 is to create specific tasks. I think about the essential elements needed for success. The top player must stand up completely and must control both of the player's feet. For the top player, standing up and controlling the feet must be done in order to clear the leg-to-leg connection. That is why we make tasks to point the players into this direction. The bottom player's task is to keep weight and pressure on the top player's hips. Now here's the crucial part. You must test your game and be ready to modify it. When you first play this game, watch carefully for problems. Let's say the top player keeps getting swept every time they try to stand up. This tells us that the game needs adjustment. An example of an iteration could be to add the constraint that the top player must secure control of both feet before attempting to stand up. This teaches them to address the grips first, making their stand-up much safer and more effective. Let me give you a second example that is more suitable for beginners that need to learn off balances from guard. So, we have a problem. We need to teach beginners how to create off balances from guard. The bottom player starts with one of the top player's foot in their armpits, with that same arm wrapped around their leg. Bottom player also starts with hips to floor. Top player starts standing. Bottom player has the terminal goal of getting the top player's hips or one of his hands to touch the floor. When the bottom player reaches his terminal goal, a switch in player positions is triggered. Player has the continuous role of trying to maintain balance and keep standing on 2 feet. The top player wins by maintaining balance. Now you can move on from here. You can start with this, then depending on what happens between the players, you can change the game structure to constrain or lead the players to more specified problems. In the later parts of this video, I want to give you some key principles that will help you make better games. So the first one is to encourage exploration. Remember, the constraint-led approach works because the players discover multiple solutions to the same problem. Don't give them the answer, let them find it through play. The second one is to practice game design regularly. Creating good games is a skill that improves with practice. The more games you design and test, the better you'll become at identifying the right constraints. Always play to win. Remember, we're not drilling. It's competitive play with specific rules. Players should always try to achieve their win condition, even if it means doing something that wouldn't normally be good jiu-jitsu. If the player's win condition contradicts what you normally do in a role, follow the game rules anyway. The learning happens through solving these artificial problems, which then transfers to real situations. Design for optimal learning repetitions. When creating your games, aim to have the players that are working on the main skill or position win approximately 70% of the time. This sweet spot ensures they get plenty of opportunities to practice and experience the movement patterns while still facing enough resistance to make the learning meaningful. If one player is winning too much or too little, adjust the constraints accordingly. The beauty of this approach is its adaptability. Start with a simple game, test it, observe what happens, then iterate. Each version teaches something new, and players develop problem-solving skills that transfer far beyond the specific techniques you're targeting. Remember, you're not teaching techniques, you're creating environments where the right techniques emerge naturally through intelligent practice. For a deeper understanding of this training method, I would highly recommend checking out Standard Jiu-Jitsu to get inspiration from Greg's game design. Also, read Rob Gray's book called How We Learn to Move. It serves as a really good introduction to this training methodology. He explains it a lot better than I do it, and I would highly recommend you guys read his book. So, this was my first video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. Also, please write in the comments what you like and what you didn't like about this video so I can improve in the future.